The New York night stood dry and brittle as crystal. Daniel Gray, the public face of the Helix Empire, a philanthropist who built schools and clinics, was stepping out of a black sedan under the flashbulbs. A gala, an auction for children's hospitals, a speech in his pocket, a steady stock price in his head, a confident silence in his heart. And at that very moment the phone twitched like a living thing. A notification from the Sentinel. An investigation. The headline was piercing. Helix falsified medical data for the FDA. Gray himself is responsible. In 10 seconds the world had shrunk to a narrow strip of light on the sidewalk. Fake, he whispered into the void. But the void did not respond. Mr. Gray, smile, the photographer suggested. Of course, he said, and felt his facial muscles learning to lie faster than his thoughts. In the hall, crystal chandeliers, an orchestra, champagne, toasts. On the stage, his name on a gold plate. On the screen, a different reality. A news feed crawled red past the guest's eyes. SEC launches investigation. Senator Kramer demands explanations. Stocks are falling. Lucas Rain appeared nearby, the co-founder, the one who had once built server racks with him in the garage. I'll do it, Lucas said too quickly. You go out and talk. The audience believes you. And me? Daniel asked, but Lucas had already returned to his phone. He stepped onto the stage as if onto cracking ice. The words in his speech began to sway like boats on the waves. He spoke of children, of hope, of innovations that save lives every day. And at the same time he saw in his memory laboratory graphs. Clean, correct, beautiful. Too beautiful? No, we've had independent audits, he repeated to himself. When the applause died down, someone from the back row shouted, "What about data manipulation, Mr. Gray?" Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment and heard his late mother's voice. Don't sell the truth, even if it's more valuable than you. He opened his eyes and said into the microphone, "We'll answer every question. If there's a mistake somewhere, I'll be the first to correct it." After the stage was a corridor, long and narrow like a tunnel. Julia, his fiancée, touched his sleeve. "Tell me it's a lie. Tell me, here, without the cameras." I don't know," he answered honestly, and felt air appear between them, colder than steel. When the elevator doors closed, he looked at his reflection. The suit fit perfectly, the tie was even, his gaze empty. In his left hand was a phone with the endless darkness of headlines. In his right hand, a tremor that could not be stopped. He understood, this was not a storm on the horizon. This was a landslide under his feet. And only as the car rushed down did Daniel allow himself a whisper that only he could hear. What if the truth really is more precious than me? And the elevator drove into the darkness, as if into the depths of his new, unfamiliar reality. Morning came with harsh light and a harsh ringing of the phone. Lawyers, PR, board of directors. Calm the market. Admit process errors, but not intent. Shift responsibility to the contractor. Words became shields, and shields became fragile. In the glass and steel headquarters, where everything had always rang with efficiency, suspicion now rang. We didn't change anything. Daniel clenched the desk as if he could wring the truth out of it. We need the raw test log files. All of them. Already stored in the vault. Lucas replied, not meeting his gaze. Give us time. There was no time. The Sentinel posted another piece of the puzzle, a correspondence between middle managers that read, adjust the data window to make the model look stable. Daniel's name was not mentioned, but the news didn't care. The article had more sections, the ties to Senator Kramer, who had pushed for rapid approval of medical algorithms. The photo was of them shaking hands at a charity golf tournament. There was no context. Credit lines were being squeezed. Foundations were suspending grants. Charitable boards were asking for temporary name removal. Julia was silent. Her gaze became a mirror in which he saw no himself. Only the outline of someone who might lie to win. You might not have known, she finally said. But you should have known. Those are different things, he replied, and felt the vessel in which he had carried his excuses shatter. The board met without further ado. The vote was quick and clean, like a surgical incision. Suspend the CEO for the duration of the investigation. Lucas remained in the operating role. Daniel walked out of the room, not feeling the weight of his own body. It's temporary, Lucas snapped. I'm on the defensive. From whom? Daniel asked. From the truth. That evening, The Sentinel published an anonymous source's correspondence. Gray knew. The messages looked like puzzles from someone else's hands. But the market doesn't put together puzzles. It's going downhill. The stock fell another 40%. The SEC called for a hearing. Senator Kramer called him a symptom of technological arrogance on air. And then came the blow he hadn't expected. The Helix Hope Foundation, his pride, had severed its partnerships, citing reputational risks. Hundreds of letters from parents of children their protocols had helped were mixed with threats and contempt. You played with our lives. He read each one and broke down for the first time, not in print, but on the kitchen floor, between the stainless steel and the cold tile. If this is a conspiracy, why do they need me? He asked the darkness. The darkness responded with a silence that had everything: fear, shame, rage, and a small, almost ridiculous hope that this could still be fixed. When the message from his father came, "Son, come back. The fish are still biting here in the morning," he understood the scale of the loss. Not the money, not the positions, but his own image in the minds of those who believed in him. And then he made the first decision that no one liked: to go deep, even if it was dark there. He didn't go to the Hamptons, but to the old neighborhood of Brooklyn, where he had once rented a room and assembled his first server. In a coffee shop with worn brick and the smell of wet coffee, Maya was waiting for him, a former quality control engineer who had been fired a year ago for toxicity. At that time, he believed that she was interfering with the team. Now she held the hard drive in her hands like a sacred relic. "I know you didn't want to see this," Maya said, "but now you will see. Here are the raw logs from the lab. Compare them with the ones in the reports. The data windows are shifted. It wasn't the algorithm that saved the indicators. They were manually trimmed for stability. You didn't push to production under your key." "Impossible," Daniel answered automatically. Maybe if access was redistributed to the root signature. Someone played higher than the developers. Someone with a motive, change of control, licenses, a quick exit. And something else. She put down the envelope. "A letter from an auditor we never hired, but whose signature is in our file. The signature is real, but the contract isn't." "Who?" His throat went dry. "The schemes go back to a brokerage firm affiliated with Northlane. They bet against our stock a month before the Sentinel was published, and they have long connections to Senator Kramer's office." The puzzle began to come together in a shape he liked even less than chaos. You weren't just accused. You were used as leverage. At night, in the abandoned loft above the coffee shop, he and May would go through the logs, the correspondence, the access traces. He saw his name in the headers of system emails for pushes he hadn't made. "I saw contracts where the seals matched but the text didn't. I saw someone else's hand drawing its destruction like a blueprint for a bridge." "Why did you come back to me?" he asked in the morning. "Because you once signed a check for a boy for a prosthetic leg when it wasn't profitable. Because the truth isn't a linear graph," Maya smiled. "And, to be honest, I'm angry. I want those who did it to pay." In the afternoon, Arthur Penn, an old investigative journalist who had left the Sentinel when the editor refused to publish his story on Northlane, joined them. He brought a folder of copies, political donation schemes, the creation of fake audits, lobbying for quick approval of algorithms. "You have the facts," Arthur said. "I have a map of the roads that these facts travel. If we go, there's no turning back." Daniel looked out the window, where the rain was scratching the glass like a fingernail. "No way back" sounded like a curse and an opportunity. At night, he opened his laptop and saw another file, an old letter from his mother, scanned and forgotten in the cloud. "Son, remember, when the truth returns, it always takes more than we are willing to give. But it brings something that money cannot buy." By morning, the plan was simple and impossible. Gather materials, go to the prosecutor's office, go to the Senate hearings, not to defend himself, but to expose, even if it would break him completely. And when he signed his first letter of confession, not of guilt, but of responsibility, the world turned upside down. Now he was chasing not his reputation, but the truth, which had finally stopped running away from him. The Senate chamber was as cold as an operating room. Kramer sat as straight as a bronze statue, his lips curling into a smile. The cameras caught every breath. Lucas was in the second row, impeccable as ever. Daniel had a flash drive in his hand, a determination that hurt. "Mr. Gray," the committee chairman began, "you are here to explain how your company put people's lives at risk." I am here to explain how I allowed the system to make me a front, he replied, and to show who was behind it. He, Maya, and Arthur laid out the map, logs proving the substitutions after his approvals, fake audits converging on the pipeline companies, timestamps synchronous with large short positions in Northlane, emails from Kramer's office, offering to expedite the passage of the bill in exchange for supporting the bill. The room had become a whisper. Do you realize that you are now signing a civil lawsuit against yourself? The senator from the other side asked. I understand, he said. I was the boss. Even if I didn't know, I should have known. My name is the door that made this possible. I will pay. But those who picked the locks must be brought to justice. Lucas asked for the floor. Daniel, his voice was honeyed. You have always been an idealist. This is business. You simply could not stand the weight of reality. Reality is the children whose data you fitted to the stock calendar, Daniel replied. Reality is the people you called variations when they became losses in the model. Kramer leaned back in his chair. You are slandering a public servant, he said. Where is the evidence? Arthur picked up the printout. Here. Your assistant forgot to remove the metadata. Date, time, IP. You're not the first person to be overconfident. At that moment, all or nothing ceased to be a metaphor. The lawyers whispered, Stop. Let's make a deal. Save some. Daniel nodded and turned off the microphone. In the hallway, Maya stopped him by the sleeve. If you leave now, they'll grind you up. If I stay, they'll grind you up, too, he smiled. But maybe that time my real name will be written on the flower. That evening, he gave a press conference without logos or stands. Just a microphone, a wall, and him. I'm not a hero, Daniel said. I'm a person who trusted comfort more than the truth. Today I choose the opposite. If I have to lose everything to do this, I'm ready. Because the other everything is a lie. And for the first time in many months, he felt the silence return. Not the empty one, but the one in which one could stand upright. The consequences came like a tide, slowly, inevitably, to the bone. The lawsuits poured in like gravel. He sold his penthouse, his yacht, his wine collection, and with them the legend about himself that he had cherished for so long. Helix was cleaned up, separated into a new structure. Lucas was arrested a month later, not for Daniel's words, but for the numbers that spoke louder. Kramer resigned for family reasons. Arthur returned to journalism on his own terms. Maya headed a small institute for open medical data. And Daniel? He rented a small workshop on the outskirts, where the servers and the laughter of young engineers could be heard again. Why don't you return to the big stage? Julia asked, arriving unannounced. They stood by the window, behind which the rain was drawing wrinkles on the asphalt. Because the big stage is sometimes a small truth, he replied. I'm opening the Helix core code, the one that hasn't been dirty. I want clinics and hotspots to be able to put our models without licenses. It won't make you rich again. It might make me honest again. They were silent for a long time. Then Julia said, I was scared then. Not your fault, your insecurity. Me too, he admitted. I wanted to be right more than to be real. Late at night, he wrote a letter to his friend's son, the same boy with the prosthesis. You asked if it was possible to be rich and honest. I don't know. You can be honest and try not to become poor from it. You can be rich and not sell your soul. But to do that, you have to buy it back every day with small actions. I learned late, but I learned it all the same. Success is not when your truth looks more expensive than you, but when you are more expensive than any benefit. At dawn, he went to his father. The lake was as dull as an old mirror, and the fish really did bite better in the morning. They sat side by side, not building empires, not reflecting off the cameras. So, son, said the father, how is your capital? There they will catch the shadow of what was built from lies for a long time to come. Daniel smiled. But here, Dad, it bites. He cast his rod and thought, truth does not make you a saint. It makes you visible to yourself. And, perhaps, true luxury is not meters of glass above the city, but the ability to look into the water and see not monsters there, but your reflection, which is no longer ashamed to recognize. Can you be rich and honest? You can try, and pay the price for each attempt. What is more important, truth or success? If success cannot withstand the truth, it was never yours. Can you redeem the past? No, but you can redeem yourself and live with it.